The episode Aruncarea cu ciocanul, partea 2, from Las Fierbinți, unfolds like a theatrical mirror, reflecting both the ridiculousness and poignancy of small-town Romania. On the surface, it appears to be a simple comedic continuation of a local competition gone awry, yet beneath its humor lies a deep exploration of social tension, fragile identity, and the eternal need for recognition. What makes this episode particularly captivating is its ability to turn the absurdity of rural life into something almost philosophical, as though every comic misstep and misunderstanding conceals a truth about human nature and the unfulfilled dreams of ordinary people. In this particular story, the hammer-throwing contest serves as the narrative engine around which the community revolves. But rather than focusing on the competition itself, the episode delves into how such an event can expose the social structure of the village. The characters, all familiar archetypes by now, use the contest as a way to define themselves. For Branzoi, it is a test of pride. For Robi, it is a spectacle to mock. For Gianni, it is a chance to display false expertise. For Aspirina, it is a business opportunity. In these interactions, the hammer becomes more than a sports tool. It becomes a metaphor for projection, ambition, and the absurd performance of self. What fascinates me most in this episode is the way Las Fierbinți captures the inertia of rural life with affection rather than pity. Every scene is slow yet alive, moving with a rhythm that mirrors the pace of the village itself, where time stretches, where gossip replaces news, and where every small event takes on monumental significance simply because nothing else ever happens. The episode is filmed with that distinct rustic warmth that defines the series, where the color palette leans toward the faded yellows and browns of late summer, and the sound of distant chickens or wind through grass becomes part of the dialogue itself. The visual atmosphere feels nostalgic, as if we are watching not only the life of Fierbinți, but also an echo of an entire cultural past that refuses to die. The characters act as embodiments of this persistence. Branzoi, in particular, stands out as a tragicomic figure whose exaggerated determination becomes the heart of the episode. His insistence on winning the hammer-throwing contest is both funny and heartbreaking. The way he trains, consulting non-existent sports manuals, practicing with random objects, or trying to imitate Olympic athletes he's seen on TV, exposes the absurdity of ambition without resources. Yet it also makes him deeply human. He is not delusional. He is simply desperate for something to believe in, for some proof that his existence matters in a place where life often feels directionless. The dialogue surrounding Branzoi's efforts is rich with subtext. When Firițel and Celentano tease him about his form, their laughter hides a shared frustration with their own failures. Everyone in Fierbinți dreams of being more than what they are, but they express it through humor and parody rather than open longing. This self-deprecating humor is the survival mechanism of the village, a defense against despair. The brilliance of Las Fierbinți lies in its ability to transform such humor into poetry. By laughing at themselves, the characters reclaim agency in a world that has largely ignored them. The episode also plays with the idea of community theater. The competition becomes a performance in which everyone has a role: the spectators who gossip, the self-proclaimed referee who cannot count, the commentators who mistake clichés for analysis, and the competitors who take the game too seriously. It is a collective illusion, and the camera treats it as both hilarious and sacred. The absurd choreography of the villagers, Their exaggerated seriousness and their lack of coordination all turn the event into an improvised ritual of belonging. Even when nothing works, the mere act of gathering, of participating in the farce, gives life meaning. This, perhaps, is the central thesis of Aruncarea cu ciocanul, partea tâi, that meaning in small communities is not derived from success, but from the shared performance of living. The cinematography of the episode amplifies this theme beautifully. Long takes capture the villagers standing in uneven lines under the sun, the sweat on their foreheads glistening, their expressions oscillating between boredom and excitement. The camera occasionally zooms in on faces during moments of absurd seriousness, a man measuring the throw distance with an old shoe, another adjusting his shirt like an athlete before a final attempt. These details create a language of comedy that feels organic, not forced. The humor arises from observation, not exaggeration, and it always carries a tinge of affection. The show never mocks its characters cruelly. It loves them too much for that. One of the most telling scenes in the episode involves Stella, who insists on organizing the event properly, keeping a list of participants and results. Her desire for order collides with the chaos of rural improvisation. Despite her best efforts, the scoreboard keeps falling, numbers get mixed up, and nobody remembers whose turn it is. This recurring failure to impose structure on disorder becomes symbolic of the entire Romanian rural condition, a desire for progress constantly thwarted by systemic confusion, laziness, or simple human error. Yet, instead of despairing, the villagers turn it into comedy. Their laughter at failure becomes a collective embrace of imperfection. Another layer of brilliance lies in the use of language. The Romanian dialogue, though written for humor, is rich with rhythm, double meaning, and cultural nuance. The characters' way of speaking, full of idioms, half-phrases, and borrowed urban slang, reflects the linguistic hybridity of modern Romania. They mimic the sophistication of city dwellers, yet their speech betrays the authenticity of rural thought. This linguistic contrast between aspiration and reality is one of the show's greatest strengths. It is through language that Las Fierbinți reveals the contradictions of its world. The comedic energy of the episode is balanced by moments of quiet melancholy. There are brief pauses in which the laughter fades and the camera lingers on a face, a sunset, or an abandoned object. These silences are where the show's emotional power lies. In one such moment, after a failed throw, Branzoa sits on the grass, breathing heavily, looking at the hammer as if it were both his enemy and his only friend. The music softens, and for a few seconds, the humor dissolves into contemplation. The audience is reminded that behind every village joke lies a lifetime of resignation and resilience. It is this sensitivity that elevates the show from comedy to art. Comparing this episode with earlier ones, there is a noticeable deepening of tone. The series has evolved from light, situational humor to something more akin to social satire, wrapped in affection. In Aruncarea cu ciocanul, partea tâi, the writers seem more aware of the cultural significance of their work. They no longer portray the villagers as mere caricatures, but as complex human beings whose absurdities are reflections of universal flaws. The hammer-throwing contest becomes a symbolic microcosm of the nation itself, a country throwing its efforts into the void, uncertain of direction, yet stubbornly hopeful. The female characters also play a crucial role in this episode. often acting as the pragmatic anchors to male foolishness. Aspirina, always the opportunist, sees the event as a business chance. She sets up a stand selling drinks, snacks, and even betting slips, demonstrating a sharp understanding of profit, where men see only glory. Her interactions with the men are filled with irony. She treats their competition with amused detachment while simultaneously exploiting it. This gender dynamic is essential to understanding Las Fierbinți. The men perform their fragile masculinity while the women manage the aftermath. The show subtly acknowledges this imbalance without turning it into a political statement. Instead, it presents it as a simple truth of social structure. There is also an undercurrent of nostalgia running through the episode. The villagers' obsession with organizing their own mini-Olympics feels like a desperate attempt to reconnect with a sense of community long eroded by migration and modernization. Many Romanian villages today face depopulation, and Las Fierbinți captures that melancholy through laughter. When everyone gathers to watch the hammer throwing, the camera pans over faces, old, young, hopeful, weary. And for a moment, you feel that this event is not about sport, but about memory. It is an act of collective remembrance, a celebration of existence in the face of disappearance. On a personal level, what resonates most with me in this episode is how it portrays failure as something noble. The characters fail constantly at organizing, at competing, at understanding, but their failures never destroy them. They laugh, they drink, they move on. In a world obsessed with success, this acceptance of mediocrity feels revolutionary. It suggests that dignity can exist without achievement, that the act of trying is itself an affirmation of life. This is why the episode lingers in the mind long after the laughter fades. The ending sequence, quiet and almost melancholic, reinforces this message. As the sun sets, the field empties, and the hammer lies abandoned on the ground. The camera holds the shot, allowing the sounds of evening, the crickets, the distant chatter, the clinking of bottles, to fill the silence. It is as if the day's madness never happened, yet something has changed. The villagers, though unchanged in circumstance, have shared something genuine. Their laughter has turned into a form of communion. They may never escape their small world, but they have found meaning within it. From a narrative standpoint, Aruncaria cu ciocanul, partea 2, exemplifies the strength of Las Fierbinți's storytelling approach. Cyclical, episodic yet emotionally cumulative. Each event might appear isolated, but together they build a portrait of a community living at the intersection of hope and absurdity. The humor is not there to ridicule, but to humanize. Every character, no matter how foolish, is treated with compassion. Even when the show mocks, it does so with love. What makes this episode stand out, among others, is its precision in balancing tone. Too much comedy would trivialize the emotion. Too much sentiment would suffocate the humor. The writers managed to walk that fine line, allowing laughter and sadness to coexist. The result is an episode that feels both funny and profound, both immediate and timeless. It speaks to anyone who has ever felt stuck, who has ever tried to find meaning in small acts when the world refuses to offer larger ones. The episode also serves as a subtle critique of how entertainment shapes rural aspiration. The villagers mimic what they see on TV, the commentary style, the idea of medals, the notion of fair play. But in doing so, they expose how alien these values are in their world. There are no medals in Fierbinți, no professional referees, no broadcast cameras. Yet the desire to imitate persists. It is as if the village is performing for an invisible audience, much like the rest of us in the age of social media. The hammer-throwing contest becomes an allegory for a society trapped between authenticity and performance, between who we are and who we wish to appear to be. Ultimately, Aruncarea cu ciocanul, partea 2, is a celebration of the human spirit in its most comical and tragic form. It takes the mundane and turns it into something meaningful. It laughs at failure, but honors persistence. It shows that joy can exist even in absurdity, and that laughter is perhaps the purest form of resilience. For me, this episode encapsulates what Las Fierbinți has always done best, transforming the small, forgotten corners of life into mirrors for the entire human condition. In Fierbinți, a hammer may fly nowhere, but the act of throwing it over and over without giving up is a testament to something eternal in us all. The episode ends not with triumph or resolution, but with quiet acceptance, which feels more honest than any victory could. Life goes on, the field remains, and tomorrow someone will find another reason to laugh.